Good evening, Don Pelayo checking in with you guys. It is Thursday, still Thursday. We're about 20 minutes from midnight, so it's a little late, but June 26th, 2025. Just wanted to try to get a video out today. I came home from work and had dinner, and I fell right to sleep just about. I woke up a little while ago. So my sometimes my schedule just gets completely off. Um, I did want to put a video out. I told you guys I was going to be talking a little bit about personal finance, and I wanted to talk a little bit about today about a little bit more about debt payments, and also beginning to build your emergency fund. First, the emergency fund piece. I want to start with that. I think it's important that every time you get paid, you put a little bit of money aside for yourself. My goal recently has been $100 a week. I'm trying to put $100 a week aside in savings, just each and every week, put that $100 over there. That may be more than what you feel like you can do right now. I totally understand that. I've been there. But even if you can just put $20 a week or whatever you feel like you can do, it shouldn't be too easy. It should be a goal that you're striving to do each week. As I mentioned in my previous video, if you can run a couple of DoorDash, runs every day, take an hour every evening to run a couple of DoorDash orders. So you could put, $15-$20 a day, potentially, in savings from running DoorDash. Um, if you're able to put $20 a day in savings, that's $600 a month. That's a great victory. You should look at that as a victory. Um, I would suggest having at minimum, like very, very bare minimum, $1,000 to set aside in savings. I think that's a little too little for myself. My goal is, I try to have $2,500 in cash at all times, for any things that pop up. That's not a fully funded emergency fund. That's just the portion that I want to have, that I can go to the bank and take out if I need to get my hands on cash. Um, I do try to keep, that money, try to find high yield savings accounts to keep that money in. I think it's important to have all of your money working for you. Most bank accounts, checking and savings accounts, don't pay much in interest. If checking accounts, a lot of times don't pay any interest, which is okay. I don't really, I basically keep enough in checking to pay my bills, every week, So, my savings account, I try to keep my money in a high yield savings account. Right now, I would say there are a lot of savings accounts out there that are paying 3% plus on your money. You can find them right now. They're out there. You just kind of have to look a little bit. Some of the credit unions offer decent savings rates. There may be some account minimums. You'll just have to look into that. But there are a lot of online savings accounts that you can tap into. I know that, for example, Capital One has one out there. But several of these online banks, you can find savings accounts paying higher than 3%. I think that's a great place to try to build up your savings and get a little return on that money anyway. Try to at least offset some of the inflation eating away at our purchasing power. Um, once you have that minimum, that minimum amount of cash set aside, you need to start working on your debt. I know a lot of Americans right now are struggling with their debt payments. Um, I would suggest that if you are one of those people that is really struggling with debt, I am going to attach a link to this video with a document that goes into some details about how you can deal with getting out of debt. It's done by a guy named Gregory Manarino. He has a YouTube channel. He was a Wall Street guy for a long time, and he had some suggestions on how people who find themselves really being beaten down by debt, especially unsecured debt, um, how they, credit cards, lines of credit, things like that, how you can best deal with that. This is not traditional financial advice. I will tell you that his method of dealing with getting out of debt, and at least initially, is going to hurt your credit. It will typically. He also believes in doing the debt snowball, but the difference is, when Dave Ramsey talks about doing the debt snowball, he talks about making minimum payments on everything and then throwing anything extra at that smallest payment. Well, what Gregory Manarino recommends doing is paying each of your creditors $5 a month, which is usually less than the minimum that you owe them, the minimum payment. And of course, that's going to hurt your credit by doing that. But then that gives you a bigger chunk of money to throw at that lowest balance. The $5 payment each month is important. You might ask, why not just pay zero? Well, paying $5 at least lets the creditor know that you're aware of them, that you're not trying to just skip out on your obligation. They're not going to be real happy about these lower payments, but use that time to really start paying down the smallest bill. And then once you have that first one paid off, roll the entire amount that you were paying on the smallest one into the next smallest balance. And then just keep going until you're going to be gradually paying off each balance, and your payments are going to get bigger and bigger and bigger that you're throwing at the larger bills, and eventually you'll be out of debt. It's all going to depend on your personal financial situation, the amount of debt that you're carrying. I'm going to tell you guys, gosh, I was carrying 5 years ago about, close to $40,000 in unsecured debt, outside of my mortgage and car payment. So a lot of that was, I'm going to be honest with you, I went a little bit nuts when I bought this house, buying furniture and everything that went into my house. I shouldn't have done that. I was kind of in a place where I was really trying to get my life going, and it's like, especially after 2 divorces and everything I've been through, and I've got a good job, and I felt like I could, take it on. And then next thing you're like, whoa, these debt payments. So, I was making close to $2,000 a month payments on my debt, on these unsecured loans, just on credit cards and credit lines. I got in a little bit over my head. It was dumb. It was dumb. I agree that it was dumb. It's really funny, when you work in finance, managing other people's money is easier than managing your own sometimes. And it's like, you got to keep your emotions in check with this stuff, because there is an emotional element to managing your own personal finance. I am at a point now, I will be making my last payment probably in August on that unsecured debt. And then I'm done. I'm out. So I haven't, I've done it a little bit. This is pretty much what I've done, is using the debt snowball method, paying these things off. But it will initially hurt your credit. I'm not going to lie. It does, it has affected my credit score. Um, I don't feel like I really need my credit. That was one reason why I was willing to do this, is because I didn't really feel like I needed my credit. I'm not planning on buying anything on credit anytime in the near future. Probably the next purchase that I will make using my credit will be when I have to get another car, but I'm not really planning on buying another car for at least 5 years, probably. And so I'll have my credit repaired by that point. So it takes a few years for all that to work itself out, but I've already seen my credit score beginning to rise. You know, it did dip down. Now if you're planning on buying a house in the next couple of years or anything like that, then this probably isn't the method for you, because your credit, it's going to take you probably at least 5 years to get your credit score back up into a range where you can look at credit options, in terms of using your credit. So just keep that in mind. Um, Going forward, I would be very cautious taking on any new debt. We really have a problem with debt in America. Major problem with debt in America. Um, you know, I think that especially when it comes to things like for cars, we've really got to. We all have our wants. I want that. As people want to have something to show off to people that they don't even know. It's like, who cares what other people think? We care way too much about what other people think about us, and that's got to stop, you guys. I think it's important. Try not to have a car payment. If you can swing it, if you can buy an inexpensive used car, um, either with cash or just very little, buy a very inexpensive, have a car payment that maybe is a couple $100s a month. um, do that, because the car payments are a big part of the reason why Americans aren't able to save very much. I've heard the average car payment right now is like $700 a month, which to me is nuts. Even though right now my car payment's about 480 a month, the regular payment, I'm paying an extra $200 a month on top of that. I'm paying 680 a month just to get the car paid down, because I am running some extra miles on it, doing DoorDash and that sort of thing. So I'm trying to pay it down a little faster. Um, but to me, 480 a month was a lot. I think that's kind of high for a car payment. I always told myself I'm never going to pay more than, $300 a month on a car payment, but things have just gotten to the point where, you know, I probably could have gotten a cheaper car when I bought my last car. But you make those excuses. You're like, I need something that's going to be dependable. I don't want to worry about breaking down. I don't want to have those worries. But which I understand, especially for women. I would say, especially you want to have a rather reliable car if you're going to be toting around kids and everything. I totally understand. If you can keep your other debt off, the unsecured debt, you can have a little bit more of a better car, a better car payment. But we've got to start really looking at what we're spending our money on, trying to keep our debt burden as low as possible so that we can begin building assets and begin building wealth. Um, in my next videos, I'm going to start talking a little bit about beginning to build wealth. Some of you may already be doing this and work retirement plans. You may have IRAs, you may have brokerage accounts, but it's so important to start that process as early as possible. I am even really, thinking about how I'm going to help my daughters begin investing for their retirements. And my oldest daughter's only 20, so I want to get her set up with a Roth IRA, and I want to start having her make contributions. Um, I may even stick some money in her Roth IRA from time to time. Um, Even though, I mean, she's working, so I mean, she can contribute to a Roth. I don't think she's really doing that right now. I think right now she's wanting to have as access to as much of her own money as she can to do some of her hobbies and do some of the things that she is working on. She doesn't quite. My daughter doesn't know how important it is to really be building that acorn right now and in her investment account, because starting as young as she is right now, she's got 40 years plus to for that compound interest to work. It's so important to start that investment process as early as possible. So I want to begin putting some money into a Roth IRA for her. Uh, anyway, we're gonna see how that goes. I need to have that conversation with her soon. I'm gonna try to get that taken care of for her. Um, anyway, I'll talk a little bit more about that on my next video. Look at this link. For those of you that are really feeling stressed out about debt, there are some solutions out there. If you have a lot of unsecured credit card debt, I would contact the insurance companies. Sometimes you can call them and just let them know that you're really having trouble managing those payments, and they may be willing to reduce your interest rate, the interest rate that's compounding on those cards. You can call and ask to see if there's anything they can do about lowering that rate. That's a simple thing. Some of these credit cards are 25-30% interest rates. You may be able to get them to bring that down to 10%. That will save you a ton of money just by making a phone call. So be doing things like that. And if you have some success with that, put a comment on my video. Let me know, because that's I like to, I want to help people as much as I can. I'm not really doing these videos trying to earn money or get millions of views or anything like that, but I want to share what knowledge I have to, help people avoid some of the problems I've had. I've walked myself into these issues. I understand how it is out here. Um, but I've also been able to dig myself out of it using some of these suggestions, and just want to encourage everybody to begin eliminating their debts and begin building something for your futures, because I think we're all going to need to do that. Anyway, I'm gonna get ready for bed. Tomorrow's Friday. I'm very happy about this. We take turns every Friday. One of the people in my office gets off 2 hours early at 3 o'clock. Tomorrow is my day, so I'll be getting off at 3 o'clock tomorrow, and that's kind of exciting that I have a short day tomorrow, and begin the weekend a little bit early. And next week is a short week because of the 4th of July weekend. So it's funny. I had a week off not that long ago, but it's like I enjoy my breaks from work, and I think as I get older, I enjoy it even more. So anyway, um, I've been looking at my retirement picture, and there was part of me that wanted to try to retire in 10 years, and I think that's going to be a little too aggressive. Unless I can really outperform the market in terms of returns. I've historically done better than the market with my investment portfolio. Um, I'm beating the market this year, but I would really have to almost have a return 50 to 100%, doubling what the market is doing over the next 10 years in order for me to retire at age 59. So that's unlikely. But I did run some financial software today at work, our financial planning software, and I think I can certainly retire by 62. I think that's very doable for me. And so, unless the U.S. economy completely collapses and we go into the apocalypse, well, there's nothing much I can do about that, right? So I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing, and we'll see where we get. I'm 62. That's only 13 years from now. 13 years sounds like a long time, but then I think 13 years ago is when my youngest daughter had just been born. And it's like, wow, that was no time ago at all. So that seems like it was just yesterday. So you know, um yeah, well, we'll get there. And I've decided I'm going to keep talking here. Um One of my goals is I want to retire at least by 62, and then I'm going to live abroad. I'm going to go back to Spain and live for at least 3 years. I've decided I want to go over there for at least 3 years. During that time, I'm going to hike there's three Camino de Santiago hikes that I want to do. I want to hike the Camino Frances. I'm going to hike the Camino del Norte, and I'm going to hike the Via de la Plata. The Camino Frances is about 500-mile hike. The Camino del Norte is pretty close to being about the same. And then the Via de la Plata may be the most difficult out of these three. It's about 800 miles. And the good thing about being retired is that I can take it in little bites. I don't have to kill myself every day trying to do it. I can just hike 5 to 10 miles a day and just work my way up. Um, the Via de la Plata is a little bit harder because it's not as traveled as some of the other two routes. And also, it starts in Seville. Depending on what time of year you start, it's really hot down there. I'm not going to start in July or August, so I'll probably start the Via de la Plata probably in March. I would imagine I would start probably in March, and you hike up from Seville up through Extremadura, and then up through hugging the Portuguese border, basically, and hook all the way up to Santiago in northwestern Spain. So that will take a good portion of my time living in Europe to complete all three of those. But then I also want to travel to other parts of Europe. I want to go to Italy and visit Rome and Florence. I need to learn a little bit of Italian. I'd like to learn. I need to work on that. That's something I need to start working on. Is just learning some basic Italian. I'm not going to become fluent in Italian, but if I can learn some basic Italian phrases and enough to kind of get by while I'm traveling there, that would be great. I want to spend some time in England. I've heard, Europe is going through so much change right now with all these people from Africa moving in there, and it's becoming a little bit of a hotbed over there, a little bit more turbulent in Europe right now with all these people they've let into Europe. I kind of feel bad for the citizens of the countries over there because of what they've. I don't know how all that's going to turn out for the Europeans. I thought the Europeans would be a little smarter than they're being with that, especially in Spain. I think the Spaniards are starting to kind of push back on some of this stuff. They did kind of push back on Trump Trump was wanting them to hit a certain threshold in military spending. And Spain is like, no, we're not doing that. And so Trump wasn't real happy about that. But Spain spent 800 years during the Spanish Reconquista, trying to push back the Islamic influence back in the day. And so they've dealt with this before. And Europe is starting to let this stuff come back into and the problem is the Muslims, these Muslims, they don't want to become part of our societies. They want to change the societies that they're infiltrating into Islamic caliphates. That's what they're looking to do. They want to turn the societies that they're infiltrating. They want to convert it to Islam. Um, Europeans, you guys in Europe are going to have to wake up. You're going to have to wake up. Um, you know, the last time I was over in Spain, I saw a lot of it, especially in Madrid, the bigger cities. You don't see it so much in the smaller towns, but definitely in Madrid, I saw some of that. Um, y'all are gonna have to wake up. That was 4 years ago. I'm sure it's even worse now. Um, Europe needs to wake up and wake up fast because you know the way things are going. Give it 20 years, y'all aren't even going to recognize Europe. I think they're already starting to see that in England and in some of the Scandinavian countries. It's getting pretty bad, and there's definitely parts of Paris that are it's dicey. It's dicey in some of these places because of the some of what they've brought in there. Anyway, I think it's unfortunate, that's going on. There's one thing about people that want to come and be a part of the societies that they're entering. It's like that's one thing, but it's the people that want to overthrow the societies that they're joining and convert it into something else. That's what I don't approve of. So if you're coming to our countries, if you're coming to the United States, if you're coming to Europe, learn to adapt to the cultures there. I'm not saying you have to, that you have to give up your religion or anything like that. That's not at all what I'm saying. But learn to be respectful of the culture and the society that you're entering, and be respectful of their beliefs and their systems. And learn to adapt to that. That if you're joining their cultures. Anyway, that's the way things need to go. I'm hopeful. This video is going a little bit long. I'm gonna get ready to go to bed, and looking forward to getting Friday knocked out. So I'm hoping I'll get a video in tomorrow. I'll try to get a video out tomorrow evening probably. But it might be Saturday. So you guys have a great evening. Check out that link if you're struggling with debt. I'm going to put a link in here, and let me know what you think. You guys have a great evening, and take care.